Am I the asshole for blaming my parents for my disabilities? Let me start off by saying that I love my parents and would do anything for them, but yet on some level one blame them for me being born with autism, albinism, vision impairment, OCD and others. I know it's not directly their fault as they didn't take any tests to determine if I was normal. However, my mum had 9 miscarriages before me and I was born 1 month early and spent 3 months in the NICU. She is a diabetic and was told that having a baby could present complication to her and me. Edit. This all started because I had an argument with my mum that ended with me saying that I'd get my child tested before birth and push for abortion if they have anything I do because I don't want them to experience my pain.
You are the asshole. Mate, prenatal testing is mostly for fairly obvious issues such as Down syndrome and neural tube defects. There's no test to determine that a fetus is going to develop into a teen with OCD.
You are the asshole. It's unfortunate that you have been dealt these cards, but working with genetics is playing with, for the most part, arbitrary probabilities. They are not at fault for it.
You are the asshole. There are no prenatal tests for OCD, autism or visual impairments that I'm aware of. So how were your parents supposed to test that before you were born? Every prenatal test is a risk for the unborn child as far as I know, so they are usually only done if really necessary. You're either very young or quite uneducated.
You are the asshole. Your parents had no control on if you had a disability or not. They brought you into this life and it is no one's fault for how you are. You are the asshole if you're going to make wild, hypothetical claims about what you would do if your kid had what you do. You might want to make sure it's actually possible to test a fetus for that kind of thing. Don't make your parents feel more guilt or feel like they need to carry more of a burden just for wanting a child.
You are the asshole. Genetics is not something they can control, and be honest, do you think your parents willingly wanted to put you through the pain you're in?
I unfortunately passed on 2 disorders to my son who was IVF baby. Did not know I had either of these genetic conditions. Despite my husband and son saying it is not my fault, I still have guilt. I feel that if we had known we could have done genetic testing. However, my son is the best thing I ever did and I wouldn't change him for anything. Edit. You are the asshole for saying that to your mum.
But you can't test the fetus for any of those things, and none of them are caused by diabetes.
You are the asshole. There is never a guarantee that a child will be disabled or not, and tests can't always determine if a child will be disabled or not. My son has a heart disease and needs a transplant. You know what all the test results and doctors said when I was pregnant, 100% healthy, but once he was out he needed machines to survive and my son is 6 months old, so the technology is way more advanced than it was when your mom was pregnant with you. Always keep in mind your life is not worth less, and as a mother of a disabled child I can tell you she blames herself enough. There's no need to rub it in her face.
You are the asshole. There's no prenatal test for autism, OCD and multiple other impairments. Prenatal testing can give you a percentage point estimate on if the fetus will have Downs and can detect some physical abnormalities like osteoimperfecta and malformation of the limbs. There's nothing they could have learned about you in utero to predict your struggles.
You are the asshole for being such a whiny weakling. You act like you have it the hardest. Stop blaming your parents, it is not their fault. Go work on yourself instead. Yes, yada. Sorry, but you are the asshole.
Info. What's the interpersonal conflict?
You are the asshole, a huge one to be honest. A parent being diabetic doesn't cause any of the issues you have.
I vote for therapy. You have to work through some of this.
Suppose you do blame them. Then what? What does that change? The satisfaction of blaming them for your existence isn't going to change anything about your life. You need to take ownership of your feelings and your life. Get therapy and learn coping mechanisms. Stewing in resentment over your problems isn't going to change a darn thing about your life.
You are the asshole, because even now you cannot test a baby for any of your disabilities.
You are the asshole. It's just genetic. It's not your mom's faults. Blame on genetic.
You are the asshole. You can't test or OCD, autism, or visual impairment at the genetic level. Autism and OCD are neurological disorders, we don't know what causes them and they typically manifest well after birth. Same with visual impairment, it just sort of happens. The only thing that you have that can be tested for is albinism, but you are blaming your parents for an absolute laundry list of conditions that they had absolutely no control over.
Nah. Most of the stuff you listed cannot be tested for prenatally. Your parents had no way of knowing you would end up with OCD. But I do understand where you're coming from. My family is rife with mental illness, and not a single person in the last 3 generations has been spared serious depression. My mom chose to have me anyway. I'm now 24 with a spectacular cocktail of incurable mental health problems, and oh boy do I resent that choice. I love her to bits, but she knows part of me will never forgive her for having me. It's shitty and painful to know that you have been sentenced to a lifetime of suffering that your parents could have avoided by just not having you. I'm sorry you're dealing with this irrational resentment, Op. You're not alone.
I met a person who has body anomalies. It didn't show from outside unless with medical examination, meaning in some cases they found it once normally people experience change such as puberty for example. And it really crushed the mother, because the cause still unknown whether hereditary, or something with their pregnancy. Most of the mother think it may be something they did wrong in their pregnancy, they blame themselves even if there's no proof that the cause. Again the cause still unknown. So I think maybe see different perspective. I think parents would love to see their baby healthy and life well, and they tried their best to be like that.
You are the asshole. As a mother myself, that would have broken me. I don't know what the relationship with your mom is like, but I can imagine your mother has probably blamed herself needlessly at times.
Nah, some people should accept giving their generics to others is a bad idea. But remember the difference between the genes you pass on and the mutations. I need to get myself checked because I was enrolled on a radioactive school. By law, the years wasn't allowed to work there because the radiation, I'm afraid to fuck up my kids. Right now, it's your turn to choose. Do you want kids? They can carry your unfortunate generics. First world test myself to see what's genetic and what's from the early BIRH, other.
Being white's a disability. Y'all clapping hands, light skin tone, 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 clapping hands, light skin tone.
Not the asshole. I'm sorry.
Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. If she had that many miscarriages and was told having kids might lead to complications, it was pretty selfish of them to still try to have a biological child. Not that someone with disabilities is worth less or anything of course, but why give an unborn person problems and disabilities if you know it's likely and could be avoided? It's just making life harder for them. Honestly, I think they're the asshole because they didn't get any tests to check for whatever they could as well, if they knew complications were likely. It seems like your parents love you so much that they were willing to go through anything to have you, even if it was selfish of them to do so.
Nah,